Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nubraid. Requiescat in pace. We're here. Here we go. This is as assassiny as I can look. What we're gonna do, two things in this video. Number one, we are on the test server, so I have all 5 assassins. So we're gonna jump in and we are going to see what their visuals look like. What are their animations? Are they doing anything cool or cool sound effects? Whatnot? What do they look like in combat? We're gonna check that out. I've also done damage testing on each of these, and actually I was very surprised by the results. I'm going to break down to you the results of my damage testing as well. But place your bets now. Who is the hardest hitting of these assassins? Who is the weakest hitting? I did a whole video, by the way, in case you missed it, on the other 3, and I covered Cassandra in her own video and Ezio alongside the Pope in his own video as well. Right, let's take this off. Let's jump into Doom Tower normal just to see some animation. So they don't have any gear on for this. I did put gear on for testing. They've got like weird masteries and stuff as well, which is purely just for testing as well. But let's go in first. Let's go 1 time speed. Let's check out Bayek. Here he is. So he's got his bow on his back. And he is definitely, he's the one with like archer animation. So first up is A3, Prayer of the Medjay, which is buffing his whole team. There we go. Nothing too crazy, but he gets an extra turn. Let's go in now with Desert Zephyr. This is his A2. Here we go. So he gets a bow, fires off some rapid shots, goes around. Pretty sick. All right, next up we have Mr. Edward. Edward Kenway, the pirate. Let's go in with his A3 first, Between the Eyes. Here we go. Let's target this chap over here. Bang. Pulls out his gun, shoots him. Sick. So it's actually quite funny. He's holding his 2 cutlasses, kind of like this. He like puts one away, pulls a gun out of his chest holster and shoots somebody. It's quite cool. All right, next up is the free login champion. It's Ezio. Ezio's hidden gun. I can tell you right now, this is one of my favorite animations because it's straight out of the game. Ezio, he comes in, bang. But yeah, if you guys didn't play the game, a huge part of the assassins, they have like these hidden blades that come out from their wrists. Well, Ezio had a gun, but it was also a wrist-mounted gun. It wasn't like an actual gun. So that's what he does in this. He takes aim and shoots them with a gun that's hidden, like where his hidden blade is. But on the other hand, pretty darn cool, actually, I think. So I like that one a lot. Okay, next up, we've got Basim. So Basim, we're going with the Winds of Baghdad, which is a double hitter. It's going to give him an extra turn as well. Let's go in over here. Right, so jumps forward, does a couple of hits. Simple enough. Let's see his AoE as well, which is ignoring defense, does block active skill stuff. And this one, what's it called? Up in smoke. Here we go. Bam, he throws a smoke bomb, red smoke. Pretty cool effect. I don't know if we've got anyone else who's doing that sort of effect. Cassandra, then the fusion. She's up next. Let's see her Isu's Blessing, where she's going to buff herself up. She should go straight away then. All the buffs. Well, the enemy's going to go first. Okay, Cassandra gets another go. Fantastic. Let's see her Spear of Leonidas. Here we are. Big attack. Bang. Cool. So, like, her spear charges up sort of... she has the broken spear. You can sort of... you can kind of... You'll see it more easily on the actual character screen. But she has, like, the spear, which is broken. Like, just the spear head plus a tiny bit of the shaft. Sort of forged into a dagger, which is what she uses. Basically uses the spearhead as a dagger to assassinate people. But yeah, as you saw with that move, it sort of reforges into the full spear with her magic power, and she attacks with it. She's basically like a demigod by the end of her game. So yeah, which is interesting. But yeah, here we are. Right, let's see Khopesh Strike from Bayek. Walks in, hits them with his sword, walks back, straightforward enough. Edward, we've got his next attack, Fan the Hammer, double hitters. Pulls out a gun, spins around, pulls out his other gun, and shoots them. Very cool animation. Now we've got Ezio, Mr. Auditore, Da Vinci's Design. Throws it in, Poison Vial. I think that animation's maybe a little bit disappointing, to be honest. Yeah, it's kind of underwhelming, especially compared to Basim, who's got quite a cool smoke bomb. Right, Dagger Swirl from Basim then. This is his other one. Let's see, we get the 2 hits in. Yeah, he dashes forward, does a strike, dashes back, throws his dagger. Pretty cool. And then Cassandra, I guess we're not going to see all of the hits here. But West Wind Rush, yeah, we'll do her again so we can see all the hits. But sure, it just goes in and starts slashing them. All right, we've got our Khopesh Strike again. Here we go. Beautiful. Edward, his A1, Privateer Blitz. It is a triple hitter. Let's see it. Goes in, slashes people with his swords, goes back out. Oh, we've got this one is quite cool. The Eagle Dive from Ezio, which can put a decreased defense. So jumps in with the assassination strike, sort of like the sort of like a leaping assassination attack. We've already seen Basim. We'll just hit this guy. I really do like that animation. It's quite fun. Let's see if we can get the full 3 hits from Cassandra here over on the far right, so far left, I should say. But yeah, she goes in, she just slashes them a few times, and that's it for those. They are all the assassin animations. Let me know what you think. How would you rate them overall? For me, I actually quite like Ezio's. His is pretty cool. I really like Edward as well. Spinning around with all the guns is pretty sick. I think Bayek's fairly basic. Edward is cool. Basim has a cool smoke bomb. But yeah, there are the animations. What are your thoughts now that you've seen them all? Yeah, there we are. Now, let's go to some damage testing. And I'll leave this going in the background. Oh, wait, you guys can't see it. Hang on. Here we go. I'll leave it going in the background. But let me walk you through my damage test. What I did for the damage test, we went into floor 111 of Doom Tower Hard. And I put these champions in with Lazarius, and then I was sort of testing out the damage that they were doing. So first up, I was testing with Tholan. Tholan Foulbeard, though I have a 6-star blessing for him, but I swapped it to a 6-star that's not doing anything. And just to note, I pretty much gave all these champions the same mastery, so they're not gaining any benefits from mastery. I can show you, in fact. They're not gaining any benefits from their mastery, so it's just giving them all the same thing. Bit of accuracy, bit of this. Very simple. Tholan I didn't even give the accuracy to, but basically just taking away Helm Smasher randomness, switching them to blessings that wouldn't help. I took the relic off Tholan, etc., just to give them the fairest shot possible. The reason I picked Tholan, by the way, he is a good general damage dealer who's also a free login code for new players. So a lot of new players will have Tholan. I will give you a good idea for a strong modern damage dealer. So, for example, his A1 is a 2.5 AoE. His A2 is a double hitter with 2.4 times attack, but it does ignore 25% defense. So this does hit very hard. It can do extra if they're from Corrupted Alliance or if they're bosses. It's stronger against those, and it boosts him up. He's got a double hitter with a 2 times attack, so a 4 times attack multiplier on his AoE. The second hit does hit a bit stronger for every crit that he lands. So yeah, it just should give you just a broad general idea of a champion who's got, a decent AoE, not crazy, but a good AoE on his active, a weak AoE on his A1, and then a pretty strong single target nuke. It is stronger against bosses, mind you. So yeah, let's see how it all broke down. I'll just sort of leave the testing going in the background here. But this is what we got. So obviously we were fighting a variety of different enemy affinities. So for AoE attacks, I've just calculated the damage that was done to Sir Nicholas, right? Would be the most fair because he's a Void legendary. So we can see Tholan, his A1 was doing, I did a couple of tests for a couple of them. He was doing 19,000 against Sir Nick with his A1. His A2 was doing about 49,000. There we go. You can see the smacks right there. And his A3, his bigger AoE, did about 34,000. Let's actually skip ahead so we can see some assassins. How about that? Yeah, here we go. Here's some assassins. That was Tholan, and that is, I would say, our baseline. Let's see who's up next. So first up, I was testing Cassandra with no shatter buff, and I've really managed to not pick anything good here. But you can see some Cassandra gameplay. I'll be doing a full guide for Cassandra soon as well. We've got one problem with it, but here we go. So her A1, the triple hit, without her shatter buff, so just being buffed up by Lazarius, she's actually doing 39,000, which is not massively far behind the active from Tholan. And that was, by the way, as well, you could actually see her A2 testing right there. That was with only the triple hit too. She can hit 6 times, so I'm guessing it does double damage. I didn't get to test that part, but I'm guessing just double damage when she is low on life. So it's actually a very strong A1 attack that she can do a lot. And as you could see right there, without her own shatter buff, her A2 was doing 67,000 with no decreased defense, roughly. 58,000 there, a little bit lower, bit of randomness in terms of just how hard things hit. With decreased defense, She was actually hitting for me for 118,000. I think we had a few different goes here to see how hard it would hit. But yeah, I think I just didn't have her with enough accuracy, so I gave her some 59,000 there. So yeah, we can skip on ahead. I gave her some accuracy, and here we go again. Oh, and actually, we can see the hit right here with the no shatter buff. Placing that decreased defense. Here we go. Bang. 170 is almost, it was actually 118,000. Very cool. Now, when we gave her her own shatter buff, it got pretty strong. Her A1 didn't change that much, funny enough, 43,000. But her A2 actually for me hit for 154,000. So yeah, Cassandra, this is big takeaway number one from my testing. Cassandra's single target damage is ludicrously high. Now, bearing in mind, Tholen doesn't have decreased defense, she does. So even if we compare his non-decreased defense to hers, I didn't compare her with a shatter buff, a no decreased defense, but yeah, she's got very, very strong, consistent single target damage. It's very high. Obviously, Tholen can ultimately ramp up to 50% more damage, but she could be ramping up to hit 6 times instead of 3. She's got good single target damage right out of the gate, on top of bringing self buffs and all the rest, which is pretty cool. So I was impressed with her single target damage. Ezio was up next. I didn't capture video for all of them. A bit of testing here, but we got Ezio in there as well, testing out Ezio. How can he do? And his damage is fairly average, honestly. 25,000 on his A1. You might be seeing it here. Maybe his A2. No, we're going to see his A1 here against her neck. 25,000. Cool. His AoE did 113,000. Again, there could be some weak hits in there. Against her nick, it was doing 27,000. So it's not particularly impressive, right? It's weaker than Tholen's by a decent chunk, better than his A1. So it's a pretty mediocre AoE. Then his A3, his big single target attack is Hidden Gun, 60,000, which is a pretty solid hit right there. Good single target hit. Basim. Let me actually bring, Basim. Let's bring him up as well in game. I didn't video this part, but Basim, he's coming in. He's the guy who can self-buff Perfect Veil. He's the AoE that ignores defense and block active skills. Basim has by far the best AoE out of all of these characters. So his A1, about 27,000. And there can be some small variations between these as well. So it's pretty similar to Ezio. His A3, I did it with just 2 buffs on Basim. So he was getting 10% more damage. If you gave him more buffs, it would hit harder. If you give enemies debuffs, or if they have buffs, it will hit harder. But only 2 buffs on him, he was hitting for 45,000 damage. So it's an okay A3 by default, but you could scale it up to be pretty darn strong. So this could be quite a hard-hitting A3. Like, let's say we had 10% more damage. So in fact, let me work it out for you right now. Okay, so if we say 45,000 was 110% of the damage, we multiply it by 100. It was doing 40,000. Let's say 41,000 baseline. Let's say 41,000. Let's say that we have 5 buffs on him, so 25% more damage. And let's say we've got 5 debuffs on the enemy. Okay, so we're looking at 50% more damage, so we can multiply that by 1.5. Easy enough to do, 61,000. So I'd say, you know, he's going to be doing comparable damage to Ezio on his A3 relatively often, but not so much in PvP, where it's going to be a little bit more unlikely that enemies are going to have many debuffs, that sort of thing. So yeah, his A3, I think, is a decent damage move, comparable to Ezio. Not as strong as Cassandra, but decent, and actually pretty strong even when you compare it to Tholen. So Basim has a good, solid A3 that will scale very well with the condition. But it got an extra turn as well, which is cool. He could go A3 into A1 for some nice single target damage with 4 hits. His A2 is the best AoE, as I said, without Perfect Veil, 120,000, but it was potentially weak hitting some of the affinities. But it hits her nick for 32,000. So compared to Ezio hitting for 27,000, it's a good bit stronger. Pretty similar to Tholen's A3. That was without Perfect Veil. With Perfect Veil, he was hitting Sir Nick for about 40,000. That makes him, I think, the hardest hitting AoE damage dealer of all of these. So 40,000, it's a good bit ahead of Tholen's AoE. That's pretty cool. Tholen does self-buff, but yeah, there you are. So with Perfect Veil, ignoring that 30% defense, he's hitting pretty hard. And yeah, you can put out some pretty good damage with Basim. So he was the one who was striking me, is actually having pretty solid damage. Now, the biggest disappointment to me, unfortunately, was Mr. Edward Kenway, who I was really thinking would be super strong. His damage, though, was very low. I tested him without Ensnare. He did 19,000 damage on the triple hit A1, which is very, very poor. He did 26,000 damage to Sir Nick with his A2. That's his double hit AoE. So again, it's basically the same as Ezio's. It's weaker than Tholen. A lot of the assassins were falling into this sort of range. And then his A3, his Between the Eyes. This one, the Block Revive move, hits hard. It was doing decent, but not crazy, 44,000 damage. So yeah, his damage is pretty low. Now, with Ensnare, with his passive, he does 20% more damage. So he would get a straight up 20% damage boost if you're landing Ensnare. But I was assuming that, for this, that you wouldn't have it. But you can add it on, like an extra 5% on this. He'd be hitting over 30,000. So he'd be hitting sort of similarly to Basim baseline. He'd be hitting similar to a Tholen baseline if you had Ensnare out there on his AoE. So it's decent, but still not crazy. His A3 with an extra 20% damage will be, again, hitting somewhat similar to Ezio, etc. So yeah, his damage, simply enough, his damage is really low. This was a huge takeaway for me. Reading his kit, I was like, this guy is bonkers. He brings Perfect Veil for all the other assassins. He's ignoring Stone Skin. He's putting Block Revive. He steals all buffs from all enemies, and then he can sleep them as well. He's pushing turn meter back loads. I was like, holy crap, this guy is bonkers good. Here's the drawback. He's got crazy utility, but his damage numbers just seem to be on the low side from my initial testing here. It's what I found. And finally, Bayek, actually very similar damage to the others. It was a little bit tricky. I basically gave him 6,000 defense, which was sort of similar range to what I think Edward had with his attack. Edward has very high attack, but his damage just seems to be low. I gave Bayek similar defense because he's got such high defense. He's doing about 25,000 and on AoE about 27,000 to Sir Nick. I might have given him barely slightly better gear than the others, but long story short, I think Bayek, he's hitting pretty similar to all of them. And in fact, that's sort of my takeaway. The damage for all of these, if we leave out Cassandra for now, but if we compare, make it smaller and we leave out Cassandra. I got a new monitor, so I'm getting some flickering, as you can see. My monitor can't quite bit confused. Two monitors are different stuff. I don't know. My graphics card is really old. I've got a new PC coming. We've got a really fancy new monitor to go with my new PC. I think my old PC is struggling a bit with the monitor. But anyway, as you can see, I think the damage for all of them is very similar. Very similar. Like the 27k damage output with the particular gear I was giving them, which is like lethal gear, is pretty consistent. They're all hitting around that, with Basim coming ahead, noticeably ahead with that. Edward, his AoE, if Ensnare is out there, would be higher. So he would be sort of second place if there is Ensnare. Otherwise, he's pretty similar to the other guys. With the A1s, they're all pretty similar. Again, Edwards is behind, but if he had Ensnare, he'd be pretty much around the same sort of level. So they're all sort of the same level with their A1s. With the A3s, Ezio's is actually pretty good. Basim, depending on how many buffs you have, would be similar to Ezio. Edwards is sort of similar to a baseline Basim, but his A3 would get, again, similar to Ezio's if you had Ensnare out there. But if you're trying to snipe someone through Stone Skin, they're not going to have Ensnare on them, So, yeah, that was my takeaway. All their damage numbers are pretty similar. Basim was impressive, I thought, with his AoE. He's got the best AoE. Edward was a big disappointment because he's got cool utility, but his damage is definitely lacking and is definitely relying on the Ensnare. And then Cassandra was crazy, right? Cassandra, I think, has the most potential. I think her single target damage is just looking super high. Really, really high. And especially if you can consistently get her in to that sub 50% HP, and you can have her hitting 6 times with the A1, she might actually be a kind of crazy damage dealer, quite possibly, for single target bosses. So I'm quite excited to test her out. I will test her out soon. The thing that's holding me back, guys, for testing Cassandra is I've asked Plarium for help here on the test server. The new faction. I don't have any accessories for her. So Yeah, I tested, by the way, all this damage testing was done with the same gear set and just no accessories on the characters. I had to change it a bit for Bayek, obviously, because he's defense based, but I tried to keep it as similar as possible. But yeah, no relics, no accessories. I guess she did have Nature's Wrath, is giving her, she was placing what? One debuff, so it's giving her a 3% damage boost. But even so, I do think that her damage looks really good. Hopefully, I can get some accessories and give you a proper showcase today. If I don't get any accessories, I'll still try to get you a fusion showcase today or tomorrow, early, as quickly as I can. We'll just give them a few hours today to try to actually give us accessories. We can test it. If I can't, I'll compare her to like Tholin or Ninja without accessories. We'll just have to probably, we might have to ditch Merciless and just do it with Lethal or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I'll do it a no accessory test and compare her against another top tier but no accessory damage dealer. So she'll give us a good idea for how she will perform against bosses, but she's just going to look really bad in any arena testing on the test server if we go in without accessories. Like, we just won't be able to give her stone skin, and she's going to not hit hard at all. She's going to suck. So we can't really test her in PvP until we get the accessories, but we can test PvE just fine. But yeah, there we go. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Which assassin looks coolest? Which assassin was impressing you with their damage or toolkit? Yeah, again, my overall impressions, I've said this a few times, is that I'm actually fairly mid on the assassins in general. I think they're all decent, but not blowing me away. But we'll see when we actually individually test them. Like, I was really surprised by Cassandra's single target damage. That seems really cool. But yeah, I'll try to bring you some showcases soon. Give me your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Hope you had some fun, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.